All right, so obviously this is not really a video that's going to be really cohesive with the rest of the channel content, but we don't even know if there's going to be a channel by next week because of the whole YouTube purge. So once again, I have right here the address for BitChute. I'm going to try to put it in the description and also in the comments as I usually do. The Dallas fucking Cowboys have squandered the entire season, and it is clear to me that Jerry Jones has gone full Al Davis. He has no connection to reality anymore. He doesn't care about actually holding anyone to account except for, I guess, the media. He just wants to have his puppets go out on the field and pretend that they want to play in order to win the game, which if you watch today's game against the Bears in Chicago, they clearly didn't want to win. And I would even say that about a week ago, after the other disastrous loss in the Thanksgiving game against Buffalo, which was a home game, where Cole Beasley basically went out and ended up looking like Julian Edelman, looking like he was a 3-time Super Bowl champion. This time it was Mitch Trubisky, this loser, fake. He has no actual chance of ever being a real contender, in my opinion. And if he does, look, I'll apologize, but somebody actually put a tweet out, a person in the media, because this is appearing on the Yahoo Sports app, and he's like, let me see, 1 second, Finley. He said, "Wow, where was this Bears offense this entire year?" Well, the reason that the Bears offense did so great today was because a lot of these guys who made up this Cowboys defense, these fearsome dudes like Sean Lee, like Michael Bennett, like Robert Quinn, forgot how to tackle. It's like for 60 minutes they had arms that were covered in Crisco. It was insane. You had people bouncing off of them like they were billiard balls. It was crazy. And that was one problem. The other problem was that the Cowboys receivers couldn't catch their passes, and Dak Prescott had a lot of inaccuracies tonight. Now, with that being said, I think that the players, of course, are partially to blame, but really the players need someone who is a real leader in the locker room. And that can't come from the players at this point. I don't think that Dak Prescott is Mr. Fire I don't think he's not to the degree that you would say someone like Peyton Manning has been in the past. So I'm not ready to give up on him as the quarterback, but he's certainly not going to be able to lead the team to the playoffs this year. I would say, and I've said to many people over the past few days, that there's no point, in my opinion, in the Cowboys actually making the playoffs, winning the division this year, if they're going to be facing in the wild card round, which is, as of right now, it's going to be one of two teams, because they're not going to be the number 5 seed. They're not going to be the number 3 seed. Excuse me. They're going to be the number 4 seed. They're going to be the 4th ranked division title winner. And they're going to be playing either the San Francisco 49ers, which is as of today, that's going to be them, or they're going to be playing the Seattle Seahawks. One of those two teams. They're going to be hosting them at home, and it's going to be an embarrassment because I've seen the 49ers play on TV, and this team can't cover George Kittle, and they can't cover the 49ers receivers either. And Jimmy G will make complete mincemeat of the team. And the way the offense is playing, I'm pretty confident that the Niners defense could probably handle them. They're pretty fearsome too, even though I'm not familiar with a lot of their players. But the Cowboys don't deserve to be going to the playoffs. The NFC East itself doesn't deserve to have a team going to the playoffs this year. Because if you think about it, first of all, the Eagles lost the last Sunday. The only other team that could probably make the playoffs this year is the Eagles, barring a complete collapse by both teams that would allow Washington to get in. And Washington still has to break a tiebreaker with us by winning the last game in Week 17. So unless that happens, it's going to be either Dallas or the Eagles. The Eagles don't look like they want to get in either. And I think that this week, if I'm not mistaken, I can check who they're going to be playing, but they don't have a very easy path there. I think that they're playing in, let me see here. Well, they're playing the Giants. So, yeah, they actually could draw even with Dallas this week. And then next week, the Eagles are playing, we're playing the Rams, and the Eagles are playing at the Redskins. So, they could take the lead very easily in the next 2 weeks. And then we'd have to host them in Dallas and try to defeat them. And that would be, I would say, the end of the season. If the Cowboys are able to, whoever wins that game wins the NFC East. That's not going to be a real cause of dispute, because I believe that if the Eagles win next week, they knock off Washington completely. That eliminates the absurd possibility that Washington can battle back from its current, I think they have a 3-game deficit from the Cowboys and the Eagles. Then I think what's also really key here is that this was a team that after the loss of the Bills, there was all this noise about how Michael Bennett and DeMarcus Lawrence fired up the team in the locker room. That doesn't mean anything to me anymore. The way that the team looked, especially the defense, whether it was run plays. Some of the run plays, yeah, they were able to get some stops and get people tackle in the backfield. But I know that Ty Montgomery, I think it's Ty Montgomery, was able to run off some crazy cuts and get up the field. I think he had one run for 30 yards. The coverage, yeah, the secondary was awful, and especially the tackling in any context, whether it was run tackling or tackling on a pass. It was atrocious. Mitch Trubisky running basically through the entire Dallas defense into the end zone. It's a complete disgrace. It shows that Jason Garrett isn't the only person who has to be fired. The entire coaching staff has to be replaced. They can start today with getting rid of Garrett himself, putting in someone in. It doesn't even matter who else would be the coach for the rest of the year, because they're not going to. First of all, yes, maybe they could preserve the playoff bid. So what? So we started off the season. We had 3 wins against teams that were not going to go to the playoffs. The Giants, who were, you can see that they're a disaster now. The Redskins also, at the beginning of the season, Washington was much worse than it is now. Now they've strung together a couple of wins. They don't look as bad. And against the Dolphins, of course, who were basically selling people out. It was almost like the Dolphins were, you had players basically doing tryouts every week against the opponents to get traded for draft picks. Those are the 3 teams that we started the season off with 3 wins. Then reality hit. Lost 3 straight against who was it? Against the Saints, the Packers, and then whoever the hell was next. I think it was there was that awful game against the Jets. So the Cowboys were able to lose those 3 games in a row, and then it's been basically a couple of mediocre wins since then. Obviously, the win against Philadelphia. Who's not happy to beat the Eagles? I don't care what the context is, but you have to realize that the hope for the season was built on a false readings. All these false readings. When you have these teams that they're in our division, they're very poorly built, they're not very stable. The Redskins ended up firing their coach this season. So does that win actually count as a real accomplishment? The Giants are going to fire their head coach, Pat Shurmur, and the Eagles are just a mess too because of Carson Wentz and the defense. The defense is looking like a huge disappointment with Jim Schwartz at its head. I think he's getting fired this season for sure, this offseason, if not sooner. They could fire Jim Schwartz, this week if he doesn't do well enough against the Giants. I don't think that the Giants are going to beat the Eagles, but if they do, I would look for Jim Schwartz to get fired, because I would assume it's because of a defensive problem. Carson Wentz actually played reasonably well against the Dolphins, scored plenty of times, and they still lost. So we're seeing the NFC East is once again the NFC least, and this isn't the first time. There were a few times when I believe in 2011 or 2012, whichever one was Jason Garrett's first full season. The Cowboys made it. They were 8-7 going into the last game against the Giants. Completely tanked that game, lost. The Giants ended up going to the Super Bowl and winning. The next year, RG3 completely shredded the Cowboys. Also, they had an 8-7 record. One last game to get into the playoffs against Washington. Again, a complete and utter failure. That's Jason Garrett. And the next year against the Eagles, the same thing. So Jason Garrett, over his career, even in years where he's facing reasonably beatable opponents, and the Bears were a reasonably beatable opponent. The Vikings, I wouldn't say were. The Vikings, I wouldn't say are an amazing team. We basically gave the game away to them. The Packers, we could have beaten. All those NFC North teams that we lost to, we could have beaten. Those are 3 wins that are out there. I think we could have gotten at least 2 of them, especially against Minnesota and Chicago. The Packers, that game was just, it was turnovers. Everything was wrong with that game. So, yeah, this team came out flat against all 3 of those NFC North teams. The Lions game was, I guess, an outlier because the Lions are so awful that they couldn't even beat the Cowboys. And then this play over here, I don't know if I went over this at the beginning. There was an actual shot during this game after the Bears scored when a cameraman went to the sideline, and you can see that Jalen Smith just didn't want anybody to see him. It was just pathetic. I can't pull it up now, but it's like this team just doesn't want to play at all. I'm having like real freezing problems right now, so I'm not even going to play any video. So this team, it's clear that they came out, they are mailing it in. I had the suspicion that at least some of them are trying to get Garrett fired, and if that's what they were trying to do, have at it. In fact, I'd rather the Bears win because I think the Bears, for what it's worth, there's a lot of teams I hate a lot more than the Bears. I think the Bears, I actually don't hate the Bears at all. But for us to go out and go on primetime TV every single time, whether it was the game against Buffalo on Thanksgiving or here on Thursday Night Football, primetime, baby, and to lay such a disgusting egg. It was against New Orleans, I think it was a Sunday Night Football game. They score only 10 points. They were on national TV for the Jets game. They were on national TV for the Packers game. This team has done nothing since the 90s when it was Jimmy's team. Jimmy Johnson built the team up, made it into a contender. Jerry fired him after winning 2 Super Bowls. Then Barry Switzer came on, was able to get 1 more Super Bowl with Jerry's team. With Jimmy's team, not Jerry's team. Jerry Jones had nothing to do with putting together those championship rosters except for signing Deion Sanders, and that's about it. The rest of the credit goes to Jimmy Johnson, and that's why he's been smarting all those years trying to say, well, I'm the owner and the GM. I want to get the credit for putting together a championship team. His whole premise last week in saying that firing Jason Garrett would mean that they could not get to a Super Bowl, does it look like this team deserves to be in even the Peach Bowl right now? Any bowl game in NCAA? It's ridiculous. So that's about it. I know this is not a video that interests most of the channel members because, most of this content is political. But it's important enough for me, obviously. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also subscribe to me on Minds.com and on BitChute, as you can see above, especially on BitChute because this channel is likely to be wiped out next week. Also subscribe to me on Subscribestar if you want to donate, and to me on Gab. So on all three of those, mine's Subscribestar and BitChute, it's at Chef Leopard, and on Gab, it's at StarsCream85. And I'll talk to you later.